It's Thursday the 9th of May. And it's me, AC Jimbo. Many thanks to Matt Davis-Adams for filling in while I was away. Hello, Seb Stafford-Bloor.
Hello, Jimbo.
Nice to see you.
Thank you very much.
Good. Duncan Alexander's also here.
Hello.
All right, Duncan.
Yes.
Good. And Benji Lanyado. What a timely apparition by you.
Hey, Jimbo. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. You've got lots to talk to us about today, and you've also got the Inter-Totally Cup coming up later on.
Yeah. Grudge match against Jules.
Why is it a grudge match, Benji?
Just a lot of history there, Jimbo.
What history? Tell us.
2 meetings.
Yes.
I've won one, he's won the other. Controversially. I can't remember why it was controversial, but I'm pretty sure it was. And
Okay,
so, yeah.
that's enough for me.
That's enough for me as well.
Yeah.
Bad
blood about something.
Yeah,
Doesn't matter
absolutely,
what.
Jimbo.
Yeah. All right, well, you're up against PSG fan Julien for a place in the semi-final.
Exactly, there's quite a lot going on there.
There is. Isn't
Subplots.
there? Ooh, PSG were involved in the Champions League this midweek, Tuesday. They got beaten at home 1-0 by Borussia Dortmund, which absolutely nobody found remotely funny. Dortmund will now face Real Madrid in the final after they did a Real Madrid. And to be fair, Bayern did a Bayern. 1-0 up, dying minutes for a Champions League match in Spain. Yeah, but losing 2-1 and all that stuff. Let's begin today's coverage with Wednesday's extraordinary events. Real Madrid's match-winning final qualifying goal had been given after a lengthy VAR delay.
Yeah, did it in Morse code as well, just in case there are any naval vessels that were wondering.
That's the house style.
Yeah, I know.
I don't care for that at all.
Do you not?
No, I don't
it.
like it. I don't like it.
Big fan over here.
It's very 808 state.
I wonder if it's one of those things that when you hear it a little bit on European weeks, you think, oh, the Continentals. But if you were to hear it every week, say, on your Premier League Super Sunday match, you get a bit tired. Don't know if there's any other analogies that I'm... Anyway, let's talk about those final minutes of a richly entertaining match, the subs, the slips, the wild celebrations as well. Where do we want to pick up the story here? We'd had a number of chances at both ends. Manuel Neuer making unbelievable saves, mostly from Vinny Jr. And then, of course, Alphonso Davies, Real Madrid bound, scoring his first ever Champions League goal. And what a goal it was. But with minutes to go, Real Madrid are heading out. And then?
Then Manuel Neuer channels Oliver Kahn from 2002. That's what it made me think of, Jimbo. That Kahn had such a good tournament in that World Cup, and then he fumbled the shot. In goes Ronaldo, World Cup gone for Germany. And there was something so terribly unjust about it, because Neuer played brilliantly.
Yeah.
He made, to me, it was his best performance as he's recovered from his broken leg. And it was everything about it. Given what we've seen the night before, with this kind of romantic Dortmund effort, backs to the wall, fighting for everything, it felt like watching the same game twice. And you thought, clearly it's going to be the same ending. Bayern Munich against Borussia Dortmund at Wembley again. Seen that before. Everything felt right. And then all of a sudden, not so much.
Not so much. Was that the turning point? Was it Thomas Tuchel's substitutions? Was it the moment when the linesman raised his flag and the referee blew when they shouldn't have?
So when we came into the studio, Duncan and I had a quick conversation about all the controversy in big capital letters. And I think it was a little bit overdone. Bayern Munich got unlucky because early whistle, early flag, probably should have let it play out. But it was treated as if a goal was ruled out rather than a flag went up, play stopped, 5 seconds later, a goal was then scored.
I mean, it's 1 second.
Yeah.
And the rules are pretty clear. I mean, it's not a rule, it's advice. The advice is pretty clear. And we've seen it time and time again. Usually people complain the other way. Why hasn't he put his flag up that was clearly offside? This time, not only did the flag go up, which it had actually for the Real Madrid 2-1.
But after the action.
Yeah, it was different.
And the reason
But
this
the
was
referee blew the whistle, which is why the Real Madrid player
I wouldn't necessarily say this was controversial, but I would say it was ruinous what the linesman did, because I'm with Seb. I think that ultimately the Real Madrid defence and certainly the goalkeepers sort of stopped.
Yeah.
So we don't know what would have happened next, but it was obviously a very dangerous attacking position. So it's ruinous in that we just don't know.
We'll never know.
And is there some sort of directive in the Champions League where they encourage the flag rather than in the Premier League they don't?
No, the advice is to not raise the flag.
Well, then he's absolutely dropped a
Yeah, and apparently he, nicely put, and he apparently apologised afterwards.
but, you know.
Delict claimed, and Thomas Tuchel making that point. But to focus on that would be to do disservice to Real Madrid and in particular Joselu.
As Seb said, I think even Bayern weren't entirely convinced by it. I mean, they went through the motions of complaining, but Tuchel was like, it's almost like a betrayal. Like, if you're really angry, you just say betrayal, I think. So.
Yeah, well, what about Joselu then? Why is former Stoke player become a kind of byword for a real dud? We had this a couple of years ago when Choupo-Moting saved PSG, and of course he was also involved in this.
He came on in this game, I mean, that Stoke team obviously famously had multiple Champions League winners, your Bojans and your Xherdan Shaqiris. And I said to someone earlier on, actually, it feels like that Stoke team is the most iconic side of the last 30 years because people reference them all the time, in lots of different ways. And the fact that, you know, everyone that's passed through there, it's just a sort of narrative boost, and then you cash it in. I mean, even the fact that, remember when Harry Kane took the goal off Christian Eriksen, when he insisted that he touched it, that was away at Stoke. So, like, the universe converged last night in a way that began in Staffordshire.
I mean, Tony Pulis is a big factor in this because similarly, you remember when Gnabry got, 4 goals against Spurs, and everyone went, oh my God, he used to be coached by Tony Pulis.
At West Brom, I mean, I think, you're right, Pulis and Stoke basically controlled football. So, I mean, any time traveller who wants to get to the heart of football should probably go back to late 2000 Stoke for a few years and observe.
And one of 3 really good subs. Like there was a sort of tale of substitutions to some extent. Tuchel essentially going super defensive, bringing on an extra centre back with about 15 minutes to go. Yeah, pretty dangerous. Taking Kane off, like.
Well, especially as Kim had been pretty poor in the first leg, hadn't it? And it felt slightly not befitting of Bayern Munich to be sort of, you know, going full panic mode at that time.
I agree. And
Tuchel said afterwards that Harry Kane's back meant he couldn't continue, and he brought on another forward.
Didn't seem injured. I mean, what do we know? But
it was a couple of minutes to go.
But then he said his back has gone, which is kind of like what you'd say to someone if you've been down the playground with a kid, like, oh, my back's gone. I don't think I can sweep up. But I'm sure in the Champions League semi-final you might find a little bit of energy.
And also, I thought Camavinga, I think he's a lot better than Tchouameni. Maybe I'm missing something, Seb. You probably know. You've got a closer eye. But then, and Modric is a kind of now their ready-made sort of clutch player. Bring him on 15, 20 minutes to go. Like, it just felt like they dealt with the changes in the game, or with the changes of personnel, much better.
Or did they just have a better bench, which is something we've known about Bayern all season?
Fair enough, yeah.
It feels a bit that way. I think midfield at Real Madrid is sort of a midfield for all seasons, isn't it? There's a player for every situation you can encounter in league or continental football. Bayern, to me, like the great irony is that Bayern have been at the best this season when they've played in a way which is not befitting Bayern. So when they simplified, sat deep, counted, and all of the kind of the arguments and discussion about how they build up, how they control games, whether they can play whilst not expose themselves to transitions, all of that stuff melts away, and they just rely on a lot of defenders, a rugged midfield, and a lot of pace at the top of the pitch, and a centre forward who's a really good counter-attacking component. Whereas, I don't know, like I can't really believe I'm going to say this out loud. I felt really sorry for Bayern Munich last night.
Yeah,
I thought they worked really hard over both legs. Their performance in knocking out Arsenal was great. That was a really interesting kind of 180 minutes of European football, and they did an awful lot. And it also felt as if for a lot of these players, at least the kind of the Neuer, Kimmich core, it's a last go at it probably. There's going to be big structural and technical changes over the summer, and to fall short like that, that was horrible.
Joselu comes on in the 81st minute.
Yeah.
Makes 2 passes, has 2 touches in the Bayern box, gets 2 shots and 2 goals. First of all, has the sense to run in, to anticipate Neuer's
He wasn't reading the
mistake.
hype on Twitter that Neuer was back to his best. He knew something was there.
It was a
for
miss.
him.
What a gamble.
And then the second goal, I mean, it was certainly a pass from Rudiger, but hit so hard. Like, it was a proper sort of power league, just get it in the middle.
Just smash it and hope for the best.
And Jose did well to direct it in. And that was what it was. It directed it in, or steered, as you said, Seb.
It felt like such a, yes, behind the curtains of our editing last night. It felt like the classic Real Madrid moment, because it was just this big blur of activity. It almost felt like they scored twice from the same passage of play. It also happened so quickly. Chaos, VAR in there, broken Bayern Munich players on the pitch. It was so Real Madrid of this generation, just somehow. Took a game they didn't they maybe deserved it, but they didn't seem like they were going to win it. And yet, full-time whistle goes, they've won somehow, into the final they go, almost certainly they'll win the final.
I wonder what
Almost
it's like
certainly they'll win the final.
Big
what's it
shout.
like being a Real Madrid fan? Because like everyone supports teams where success is fleeting, and you had that last season, fight a European trophy, and it must have felt so amazing. But Real Madrid just do this all the time.
It'd be shit. So it'd be like Sporting City, boring.
I don't think it is. Though. There's something.
At least, City have started from a much lower point, but
Yeah.
I imagine, and I don't speak as a Real Madrid fan myself, that in the same way that we temper our expectations and what we get satisfaction from to our level of success and reward, that as a Real Madrid fan, there are probably things that would seem tiny to any other club that upset them as much as, say, getting relegated for Burnley. Maybe losing a Clasico is catastrophic to them. I don't know. Or missing out on a Champions League.
out of the Champions League.
A double with not quite enough style. That's sort of that counts like a banter era at Real Madrid, doesn't it?
Exactly.
But I've been to the Bernabeu a few times, and yes, on games like this, they get themselves up for it. But for the average home game against Oviedo. No offence, Oviedo. Most of the kind of people are just sitting there eating those pumpkin seeds. What do they eat? They got the big bags of seeds, right?
Yeah.
And they're just making their way through them. Look, we scored. Oh, look, there you go. Zidane's linked up with Ronaldo and it's gone around it's pretty rubbish most of the time.
Do you think?
Even though it's my favourite stadium in the world.
Is it better to go along to a top stadium, watch top footballers, and get the reward, the enjoyment that you've essentially paid for with your ticket, or travel along to the London Stadium in the hope that maybe the sun's going to shine?
Well, there's a little bit more riding on it, right? I think it teaches you some good life lessons.
Do you want to go and see a light rom-com, or do you want a horror movie that's going to come in edgier seats for 90 minutes?
That is very unfair to Stratford and Westfield and West Ham United.
Do you think maybe you should be rewarded with a kind of a footballing sabbatical? Like after you've done 30 years of Spurs, in my case, you get a year of Bayern Munich.
Dunk needs a 10-year one after Wickham.
That's not inside
You
of
get a
podcast.
season where you do just sit there and eat your sunflower seeds and watch Zidane and Ronaldo and Figo and you have it's like a kind of it's like going to a health farm in a footballing sense.
Cleansing.
You just get to cleanse and enjoy.
But you don't want to be at Health Farm every week. That's
Once every 30 years, Benji, right?
Yeah.
Like you get the kind of
once every 30 years. In a similar vein, Hosselu got his moment. Lovely quote from him afterwards. He said, "I've worked hard for many years, lots of manual labour." Ironic, given Neuer. Been to many places, known many people, but destiny had something saved for me.
Oh, that's lovely.
Talking of sort of forgotten Premier League players, Eric Dyer. A bit of a tangent, but I think that it'd be kind of weird if he wasn't on the plane this summer now. He
doesn't need to get on the plane. He lives in Germany, mate.
Oh, that's right. Actually, get on the train, get a taxi, an Uber,
Deutsche Bahn,
an Uber. What was I going to say? He should be our third choice centre back, I think. Realistically, because Mark Guehi has been out for a while.
Right.
Dunk kind of fluffed his lines in the last game against Belgium. Tamori doesn't seem to fancy. Branthwaite he didn't give any minutes to. I think Dyer has made a late surge.
You've made your case, Benji. We'll come back to that topic as the Euros approach. But yes, Real Madrid are through to their 18th Champions League final, which Seb assures us they will win.
That is a misquote, James Richardson. I was confident. I said almost certainly.
All right. History's on your side. The history bears you out because they haven't lost any of their last 8 European Cup or Champions League finals. In fact, the last time they went to that game and lost. Anybody? You a listener?
Liverpool?
When, Duncan?
81?
Yeah, long time ago. 70s.
It's 81.
Oh, right.
It's funny that this is Real Madrid's first European Cup final at Wembley. The two, the home of football, Real Madrid. I think if they win, as Seb says, they 100% will. I think this will complete Series 1 of football, and then you just reset everything. Everyone goes back to zero.
It's the Quince. It's their 15th, right, if they win it. Yeah. Which, again, they've had to make that into a thing. It's all we care about is it's the biggest thing in our world, on the planet, that Real Madrid get their 15th European title. The famous.
More than 14.
Yeah, exactly. But this is it. And to be fair, actually, Bellingham said this afterwards. How expecting to win the Champions League is the default position of Real Madrid, and that is cool and very it's powerful and commendable and impressive. And I got to say, even though teams winning all the time leaves me cold generally, having Bellingham in the middle of it is great fun. Because we're now this was decided the night before. There will be English players in the final, so it keeps our eye in as well.
And he'll be up against his former club. #narrative.
At Wembley.
At Wembley, yeah. Seb, if you give them what kind of percentage chance do you give Dortmund? We saw them knock out a more fancied rival in the semi-final on Tuesday. With that in mind, with the performance of Real Madrid, not an unbeatable one, I would suggest, against Bayern, what chance and why do you give Dortmund?
Say 20%. I think something strange happened to Dortmund in that semi-final. Like, I think all of a sudden, as with a lot of things we've said about Bayern Munich, you had individual players playing well above the levels that they reached in the Bundesliga, and it all happening at the same time. And what's really interesting is one of the knocks on Edin Terzic is can't devise a kind of complex tactical system in a way that would allow Dortmund to progress through these kind of games. Just before the Winterpause, they upgraded their coaching staff. So in comes Sven Bender to work with the defence. In comes Nuri Sahin to work with the kind of not just the attacking players, but the kind of the way the ball was being progressed up the pitch to make sure Jadon Sancho or Donny Marlin or Jamie Byner-Gittins, Karim Adeyemi were getting possession in the right places and sort of one-on-ones. And that's been a really interesting facet. And it feels as if some of the teams that Dortmund have faced since, especially in Europe, haven't really had enough time to prepare for the way their football has evolved through the season.
When did these changes happen at Dortmund?
So just before the Winterpause, just before they went away to their training camp in Marbella, where, according to people there, they spent day after day after day working on build-up from the defensive zones and making sure the ball progress was quicker, more incisive, more creative. Because up until then, Dortmund had been kind of, and for a few years, really an individual-led side who were only ever as good as kind of their Bellingham or their previous Sancho or their Haaland or Julian Brandt. And it left quite a kind of stale spectacle, and that's really what's changed. So I think there's a chance. There's a hope. The one thing I say is they don't have the way of punch that they used to. Like, I think if there was a Haaland in this side, if there was a Bellingham at his very, very best, you'd say that they have the talisman required to kind of take advantage of something that's not quite right about Real Madrid. At the moment, I don't know. It's
pretty extraordinary when you list the number of players that they have sold in recent years. In terms of talisman, in this Champions League season, Mats Hummels is the figure I think most people would point to on field for his goal scoring, for his defensive steal, off field for his timely chuckersome tweets. This week's one was, so many teams wanted to play against us. Luckily, we are really nice guys and made it to the final so that as many as possible of them get the chance. Lovely stuff from Mats Hummels. Also widely shared was the look of steel that he gave Lucas Beraldo just before doing him for the decisive goal in this tie. And we should talk about him. I really want to reflect a moment on Edin Terzic, who this time a year ago was in tears.
Yeah.
I mean, his journey 12 years ago in the stands as a fan, becomes manager of his club, stands before them at the end of the season, having betrayed almost them, blown the biggest chance they had to win the title in years, and now here he is leading them into the Champions League final.
Yeah, I was thinking about this because what a long year it's been for Edin Terzic and everyone at Dortmund. I spent a bit of time with the club in the summer, and it was clear that everyone was really wounded by it. Not just because they'd lost the title, but because everywhere they went, on tour, like in Germany, they were asked about it. How are you dealing with it? How are you coping with it? How did you feel the day after when you woke up and you'd blown the biggest chance in a decade? And I think it wore the club down, and I think that reflected in some of the performances earlier in the season where they just looked broken. Like they looked like a shattered team who still felt very sorry for themselves. And Terzic, it's been, I don't know how the story ends, but it's been it never feels like he's truly been apart from sort of the speculation around his job. He seemed like a kind of a coach who's there as a sort of transitional figure until Dortmund begin their next great movement, their next era there. Whereas the next 5 years of Klopp, for instance, I don't think that's ever going to happen. But I think the temptation is to think that way if you're a Dortmund fan. And Terzic, Benji, you should remember him obviously, like he was at West Ham with Slaven Bilic, and born locally. And I think what happened at the end of last season was, I mean, you'd have to have a hard heart not to feel for him. Like right at the base of the yellow wall, he had the opportunity to be a local hero forever, taken away by, I don't even really think it was his fault. I think there was a lot of stage fright that day. It was a very strange game, but it's the kind of thing that can probably define a career.
Maybe destiny has something special to say for him.
Maybe indeed.
As well. That's the manager. What about the Mats, though? How impressive were you with the all-round game of Mats Hummels, and how unexpected was it to see him performing at this level?
Well, I mean, he was in the 2013 final, so he has been around. I mean, I do think the Champions League throws up these kind of late career. Maybe it's just 3 or 4 games where someone just like muscle memory of like, oh yeah, I'm a great player, and it's an opportunity to do that. And like you said, the look he gave before the corner. I mean, Donnarumma probably should have come out for it, I would suggest. But then, you know, he's getting plaudits, but they're defending. They did still get saved by the post 6 times across the 2 games. They allowed 44 shots across the 2 games. I mean, this is why we love football, because you get stories that happen like this. But in a lot of replayed parallel universes, PSG would have got through that tie. So
right.
But that's.
I mean, hitting the post is essentially a miss.
It's off target.
Yeah. The XG on the game was 3.22 for Paris Saint-Germain and 0.77 for Dortmund. But hey, they took their chance.
Look at Terzic's playing career.
Yeah.
I mean, it's maybe of interest to 1 or 2 people out there. Never sort of got higher than the Westphalia regional divisions. It's relatively rare. You don't get that many managers now that didn't have any sort of top flight playing career.
Jose Mourinho.
Yeah, they're the exceptions.
AVB.
Yeah. Well, you just named a lot there, but
Arsene did, didn't he, at Strasbourg?
He still played top league football.
Yeah,
Frank Lampard.
Yeah, and as you say, Slaven Bilic's backup, that had passed me by.
Yeah. I can picture him sitting next to Big Slav on the bench. Yeah.
Very nice. Okay. So that was what Dortmund did. What did PSG not do, anybody, in Tuesday night's game as they exited once again the Champions League?
I felt like they didn't get the ball to Kylian Mbappe. So it seemed as if like Dortmund's game plan was Ousmane Dembele can have the ball, Achraf Hakimi can have the ball, and anybody who wants to play on the right-hand side and shell the penalty box with a cross can also have the ball, but Mbappe's not having it. I felt like Julian Ryerson did really, really well against
Julian
him.
Ryerson?
Yeah, really. He's not sort of... he's not kind of part of that cast of modern fullbacks who rushes forward and is, you know, explosive and incendiary with the ball. He's a good defender, and that felt like he showed it. I felt like he played really, really well. Not locking down that side, that might be a little bit of an overreach.
Weren't PSG just unlucky?
No, we can't do
Unlucky
that.
how?
We can't do that, Benji. We have to have analysis.
Yeah.
Well, unlucky how?
Well, you just sort of said it. You look at the XG, hit the post all those times. Like,
yeah, XG relates to the chances that they had. What they do with their chances comes down to skill, not luck, surely.
This is going to get very metaphysical very quickly, but I do think that sometimes but it's just bad luck, isn't it?
No, not necessarily. If I play for Manchester City in, say, Erling Haaland's role, they will furnish me with enough chances for me to have a high XG. My finishing will result in a similar...
I mean, he did waste a 0.89 chance a season, which I think you would have tucked away. Yeah. So, yeah.
But
genuinely,
yeah. Are you talking about Warren Zaire-Emery's moment?
No, Haaland.
Haaland, right? Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, Warren Zaire-Emery.
Yeah.
What are you going to do? You can't legislate, I guess, for that kind of moment. But it comes down to a number of factors: your nerves, your skill. But hitting the post is not bad luck.
There is just a little bit of chaos theory in the air, isn't there? In any of these kind of knockout games, where you can just get lucky and millimeters make a huge difference. That Vitinha shot, it was within a millimeter of going in. Like that. I guess what I'm saying is you can say that a team was very nearly brilliant, right? And I think what stopped them from being brilliant was a number of factors that you just mentioned, and skill, and the ice cool blood in your veins, etc., experience, and a bit of luck. I just think it's in there. It's part of the potion.
Not a football town, is it? Not a football town.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, this year will be the 14th Champions League or European Cup final held at either in London or Paris.
Oh yeah.
Arguably the 2 glamour cities of the continent. And yet
How would you argue that?
Well, in terms of...
Hamburg wants a word.
Well, in terms of sort of size and influence.
Okay.
Glamour may be the wrong word. But only 2 wins, and obviously both for Chelsea in recent memory. So that, as many as Nottingham, etc., etc. But yeah, it sometimes feels like Paris just, they're not there to win.
It does
European
happen to PSG a lot. We do end up having this conversation about them being on the wrong side of luck, misfortune, strange things every year, don't we?
We do a bit. Anyway, that was the Champions League midweek, which I think we all enjoyed, no? Pretty thrilling stuff. Looking forward to that final. We'll have a chance to preview that more fully in the weeks to come. But, Seb, who's going to be the Bayern Munich manager next season?
Does look a little bit like Hansi Flick.
Does it?
It does seem as if they just need that safe pair of hands, Jimbo, but also the kind of a little bit of a statesman to sit in the club, wait for the coaching market to change a little bit, and then allow the new kind of technical recruiting definition of the club to reveal itself, I think.
They were record-breakingly good last time he was in charge.
They really were, yeah.
So, worse things could happen if you're a Bayern Munich fan.
I just hope that Hansi Flick, if it is him, bloody wins our Harry something. I want Harry Kane to win something because I'm allowed to like him now that he's left Spurs.
Right.
And it would.
The magic came not from Harry, but from a former Potter.
Oh, very good.
Flick is in a really interesting position because it's maybe one of the first times that a former coach who's won a treble has been damaged by a documentary. So obviously Germany failed at the World Cup and the European Championship, and there was this sort of sense that it's kind of down to the talent pool. There are restrictions in the way that Germany create players at the moment. They create multitaskers rather than specialists and centre-backs and number 9s. But the Amazon documentary with the flying geese and the moment where they're all sitting in the team room after their loss to Japan and Flick is doing his analysis and Nico Schlotterbeck has dropped a against Japan and Flick just turns to him and goes, Schlotty, thoughts on that? And it's damaged him. It's kind of created this idea that he can't really sort of handle the fine detail of that level of management, which is a very strange attitude towards someone who's won what he has.
Remind me about the flying geese.
In the documentary, it was a motivational tool where Flick and his coaching staff had kind of gone away and thought about how to to galvanise a group of players who'd suffered all sorts of public criticism, and they produced this little sort of vignette of geese flying south for the winter, where they're all working together and they're all kind of flying wing to wing, and it was in formation, and it was supposed to be very profound, and you could see the faces of the players as they watched it. They weren't really sure what they were supposed to do with it. And
what did your ex-Wickham manager, who ended up at QPR, Ainsworth?
Yes.
I feel like he did something extraordinary in trying to recently galvanise
a Maori person to do the hacker, which went down okay at Wickham, like a long time into his tenure.
Is that his thing?
Well, I think, one of his things. I think the Wickham players were like, okay, this is the sort of thing that happens. But he did it. He did it within a couple of months at QPR, and
he played his hacker card early.
Very, very early, and I don't think it went down well.
Yeah. Do you think if producer Charlie were to say perform the hacker before a pod, would you feel inspired or a little bit awkward watching this go on at some length?
Better in the podcast.
Definitely. Me too.
Yeah.
In fact, I think
it would make me think of rugby, so I'd perform worse.
The Amazon Prime documentary about Germany, the Mannschaft, does appear to be called just All or Nothing.
Yeah. 'Twas nothing.
Why change a winning formula?
Good. Thank you for that, Seb. Let us next address the penultimate round of fixtures in the Premier League. Premier League. It's round 37 of the season. It involves a set of fixtures, the reverses of which, back at the start of September, saw 3 players score a hat-trick on the same day for the second time in Premier League history. I was pretty amazed it's not the first. The 3 players in question being Erling Haaland, Son Heung-min and Evan Ferguson.
As many hat-tricks that day as in the whole of the 06-07 season.
Good Lord.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Different times.
Ask
George Valdano.
This time, this round of fixtures could see both the top 4 places and the bottom 3 definitively decided. Not yet the title. Can't have that settled this weekend, but we could see a big step towards it. Anyway, here's what happens. Top 2, Man City will be visiting Fulham on Saturday lunchtime, and a day and a bit later, Arsenal make the trip to Old Trafford. That gets the big Sunday 4:30 slot. At the other end of the division, with Sheffield United already down, Burnley could become the second side relegated if they don't win at Spurs. Forest, who find themselves in a bit of a battle with Luton, over a potential third relegation spot after they heard their appeal against their 4-point deduction rejected on Tuesday. They will be at home to informed Chelsea on Saturday tea time. By the time they play that game, they could have Luton level on points with them. Luton are 3 behind currently, but facing a West Ham team that's taken, Benji, a single point from their last 4 matches. Woohoo! Also this weekend, Everton host Sheffield United, Bournemouth play Brentford, Newcastle host Brighton, and Wolves take on high-flying Crystal Palace. That's Saturday. Oh, in fact, all those games are Saturday at 3 o'clock. And Monday night, final Monday night game of the season, we'll see Aston Villa, who face a daunting trip to Athens. On Thursday, host Liverpool. No question where we're beginning there. It's Man United Arsenal. Man United losing 4-0 at Crystal Palace. Aye, 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 aye. Not the best preparation for the visit of Arsenal, but who watched the game at Selhurst Park?
I watched it.
What did you think, Duncan?
Well, part of me was thinking Manchester United Football Club losing 4-0 at Crystal Palace should be a surprise, but it kind of felt inevitable, really. I mean, they're just not very good anymore. And, you know, the shots conceded numbers since the turn of the year now, United on 317 ahead of Benji's West Ham on 308. The Moyes nexus spreads. And then you've got the 3 teams that are almost certainly going down below
So
them.
Sheffield United have conceded 297, Luton 290, and Burnley 281. And again, Man United 317.
Basically, if United concede 15 shots against Arsenal, which feels possible, they'll overtake Derby 07-08 for total shots conceded in a season.
That's extraordinary.
That's amazing.
So
you were very excited by Sheffield United's attempt to smash the old Swindon 100 goal barrier. Man United have already achieved a similar high of their own.
Yeah, they've let in 81 in all competitions, to be fair, which is the most since 1976-77, which was their old banter era. So they're plunged back into a new one.
All right, and it's all Casemiro's fault.
No,
Well, a fair chunk of it on Monday, perhaps.
he's playing out of position. I think it's harsh to complete. I mean, yeah, he doesn't look great, but it's. I think we'll see a better Casemiro in the summer. Let's say playing for Brazil.
Is this the perfect time then for Arsenal, who've taken some batterings off the hands of Man United in the past? Is it a perfect time for them to go to Old Trafford and get revenge?
Feels like it. A lot of people I know who support Arsenal are pretty nervous about that because there's something difficult. Like if you're someone of a certain age, there's an Old Trafford factor because you have so many bad memories, but also there's this sense that, as with that game United won against Liverpool, they have a performance somewhere. They have just enough talent where stars can align, everything comes together, a kind of critical mass of competence can occur, and you lose the title. And you lose to a title to a team who, re all the statistics that we've just reeled off, it's not great.
Their last 16 visits to Old Trafford, Arsenal have only won once, and that was in the empty stadium era, 2020.
How many?
Last 16.
Really?
They've only won once.
Well, that's extraordinary, and that sort of speaks to what Seb's talking about, because, I mean, over the last, 16 games is what, 5-6 years, whatever it might be? No, a lot more.
Well,
eight
is
years.
Old Trafford.
No, this is at Old Trafford for 16 years. So.
They've only won once in Old Trafford in 16 years. That's weird.
Again, for you, listener, if you weren't across that stat.
I'm just mind blown, James.
I mean, it's remarkable.
Because Arsenal have been so much, a lot better than United over in a lot of those years. I mean, maybe I'm misremembering how good Man United might have been at times in the last 16.
But to Seb's point, they've still got a bit of a historical hex over them. From the I mean, obviously Arsenal did win the league at Old Trafford in 2002, famously. But I think a decade on from that was the 8-2, which I think was a psychologically destructive game that had echoes for the rest of the Wenger era, really.
I believe.
Although you could argue that defeat did make him panic and go and buy a load of players on transfer deadline day, including Mikel Arteta. So maybe again, no Stoke connection
Full
here,
circle.
but maybe yeah.
I reckon psychologically. I mean, I think Old Trafford has a psychological hold on me just as a fan.
Oh yeah,
because
Fears of dreams.
because you go there and it doesn't matter what 11 players line up against you. You just think something bad is going to happen, and that's kind of your own fan muscle memory, isn't it? Really.
Is this Arsenal different though in that regard? Mentally tougher.
Yeah, I think. I mean, I've just been amazed by them since the turn of the year. They are now like I think we had a pod where we talked about them being a bit Arsenal-y after they had a little wobble over Christmas. But they have just been cold-blooded. Just comfortably knocking away teams 2-0, 3-0. Just it doesn't look like they don't look like they're stumbling.
So
it might not matter because they'll lose it anyway. But
they remind me of Liverpool at the end of the 18-19 season. When Liverpool and City basically won every game each from February onwards, and City won the title. But it didn't matter. But then, if you remember the following season, Liverpool basically just carried on in that mode and were miles and miles clear. So I wouldn't be surprised if Arsenal started next season just, if they don't win the league this year, as a sort of like, right, we know we're good and we're going to just not drop a point.
Well, them winning the league this year does depend on City coming a cropper somewhere. Could it be at Fulham?
No.
Well, you say that, but when the two teams met at the Etihad in September, City were held to only 7 shots. Benji, they scored with 5 of them, admittedly, but equally, City have won. You'll love this stat, actually. City have won their last 15 games against Fulham in all
15 games. Sorry,
yeah, 15.
Which covers
that makes a lot more sense than the.
If they beat them again on Saturday, they will actually set a new record for the most successive wins against a single opponent in English football history.
Related to that fixture, Jimbo, last weekend my heart fluttered when I saw Phil Foden playing on the left of a front three. Because this is something that for England is, I think, critical. And I don't know about you guys, but I have sleepless nights thinking about how you properly accommodate Phil Foden into an optimal England side. And I don't like him on the left wing. I don't like it. I think arguably someone like Anthony Gordon should be there, or maybe even Grealish. But Foden was there on the left wing and played brilliantly last week. Please continue that, Pep. Please do it for us.
Okay.
Keep playing, because you've obviously got Doku and Grealish. It's their sort of natural position. The other thing about City that I had a little look at that I found quite interesting, and you guys can be the judge of that. So they're going for their 4 in a row, right? I had a look at the squad that played in the final game of the first of the 4, so 4 years ago. And there's actually quite a lot of continuity. There's 10 players in that side that are still in the squad now. Whereas you compare it to Liverpool and Arsenal, I think it's 4 and 5, respectively. So they've actually shown quite remarkable stability over the last 4 years, whereas Arsenal have essentially had to rebuild, and they've rebuilt very effectively.
Right.
And Liverpool are going through this massive transition. So maybe that's one of the kind of subplots here, that there has been stability for City.
Okay. Anyway.
I mean, the Fulham players this week have been, there was on Instagram, they were flying kites at the training ground. So a few Arsenal fans.
Fulham players?
They're in, full end of season.
Is that a kind of flight of geese type motivational technique? Or?
Yeah, just enjoying the breeze. But, obviously some Arsenal fans...
Were they genuinely flying kites?
Yes, they were genuinely flying kites.
Sounds like a really nice time to spend a training session.
I mean, they're not quite on the beach, although as we've discussed before, the Thames is tidal by Fulham's ground, so technically they play on the beach.
Were they good at kites? Kites are harder than you think.
Yeah,
It's much harder to get up. Yeah.
Were they any good?
They were in the air.
Oh, that's fine.
Fulham's training ground is a distance away, though, from the...
Motspur Park?
Yeah.
Yeah. Quite, yeah. Good little breeze around there. But anyway, point being that a lot of Arsenal fans are like, this is an outrage. We need them to take points off City.
Right.
Outrage is strong.
Well,
outrage
dismay.
Dismay.
But in the same way that sometimes you get a team that gets stuck in traffic and only gets to the game an hour before kickoff, and then they put in a brilliant performance. Right. I think, maybe this is what Fulham need, a bit of, if they're going to bring down a team high up, they need to learn how to, etc.
Let's work on that a little bit. Come back to that kite motif. Very good. If, by the way, Fulham don't put a spanner in City's works this weekend, it'll be down to Spurs. Seb, as a Spurs fan?
Yeah, hope we lose 10-0. Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah, genuinely, because I think, maybe not 10, but there's nothing left to play for. I don't want to be part of
If
Arsenal.
you were still in the hunt for top 4, you'd still want them to
I'm
lose?
probably not the right person to ask, because I don't overly care about the Champions League thing.
Really?
I like the Champions League as a spectacle.
But you care more about Arsenal not winning the title?
I think life is better when that doesn't happen. No, because this is the nature of fandom, though, isn't it? Because you don't have to put up with the crowing and the oh god.
Is that why you moved to
don't need to
Germany?
apologise for it. I completely, obviously.
I can't understand anybody that says, how we smash City. No. Play a competitive team, put a few kids in there. Let them have a little bit of experience of a big occasion, but lose, right? Not in a way that damages them and ruins their careers.
It damaged the brand of our
No. No, try. Be competitive. But ultimately...
Which would make a change from Reece.
Yeah, absolutely. But then also remember, big financial inequity, not supposed to win, you're Tottenham.
Also, as a Spurs player, do you want to be the guy that scored the goal that helped Arsenal win the league? No, you don't.
Well,
what does that non-celebration even look like? How do you do the respectful celebration there?
I've talked with this with Jimbo many times before, but I was at the Lazio Inter game in 2002 when Poborski kept scoring for Lazio, and making Inter's chance of winning the league much less possible, making Roma and Juve's higher. And the Lazio fans were ripping out seats and throwing them at his head. So, that is the essence of football. In some ways,
easier at the Olympico, I'd say, than
to rip out
Tottenham
seats.
Hotspur. Yeah, I mean that place falling apart, isn't it? You're not going to rip out a seat easily at Tottenham Hotspur.
The whole stadium would have to come down. I think they're bolted in so much.
Crikey! Let's talk about what's going to be going down at the London Stadium, Benji. It's a game against Luton, but it's also the final home appearance for David Moyes, West Ham manager.
I know. There goes
the man
David Moyes.
Some would call our best manager ever by pretty much any measure. Thank you, Moisey. That's your words, Benji.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think after you wrote, weren't those the words you used the day before they lost 6-0 against Arsenal?
Are you head of the pro-Moyes faction?
I would happily take that role.
I've seen your tweets on this. I've read your words, and they make sense when you list all the things he's done, the players he's brought through. Even though you know all those things, you're not going to be a little bit relieved when he goes.
I mean, this is one of those moments in football, as in society, where two things being true at the same time just seems to make everyone malfunction, right? He is, by any measure, our best manager. And he's done amazingly, and yet it's probably time for him to go.
Right.
And so there's that kind of like bittersweet sort of, there's the Portuguese word, saudade. I want to go and listen to some fado, and I want to watch a highlights reel of David Moyes at West Ham, feeling sad about it's over. Feeling sad about the fact that it's over, but knowing that it's right and accepting it.
Yeah.
But can I just
Please.
Can I pour one out for David Moyes? Right, when his first 2 seasons as West Ham manager were half seasons or sort of 2/3 seasons, and he saved us from relegation in both of those seasons. The second time,
the first time he
came in after Bilic.
Came in after Bilic, kept you up, and then he was let go, and they brought in Pellegrini.
We binned him off to bring in Pellegrini. Spent £200 million, and 18 months later, we're in a worse position than when we started.
Right.
Moyes comes back in, saves us again. Right. In his first full season, which was the COVID season, we finished on 65 points, which is the most points we've ever accumulated in the Premier League. During that period, he bedded Declan Rice into the side, and he got the best 6 months of Jesse Lingard's career. And by the way, in the lockdown months, he worked as a delivery man for his local fruit and veg store, which is kind of cool.
That's really cool.
Really cool. The season after that, we got to the semis of the Europa League and lost to the eventual winners Frankfurt, but finished high enough in the league to get back in the next year. When we won the Conference League, the greatest thing to happen to us in 42 years, my favourite footballing moment of my lifetime. We then obviously get back into Europe by winning it this year. We lost to Leverkusen. Now, Leverkusen was almost David Moyes' Sistine Chapel, like unbelievably defensive away in Leverkusen. It almost worked. We were minutes away from being the first team to beat them all season at the London Stadium.
A lot of teams have been minutes away from beating them.
But again, the point is, we're out of the Europa Cup to the Europa League, to the team that will probably eventually win it, right?
Yeah.
So all of these things are incredibly impressive. He's got us to a stage where we can attract players like Paquetá and Kudus. So he has done remarkably. And in the last 3 seasons, he's beaten Chelsea 3 times, Spurs 3 times, United 3 times, Arsenal twice, Liverpool and City once each. Like, I will take that job as head of the David Moyes propaganda wing. But at the same time, things were getting stale domestically. And I'm up for seeing what Lopetegui can do,
Are you?
Yeah, definitely. And I think a lot of West Ham fans as well are realising that's probably the right level for where we are right now. I think they might have had daydreams about Amorim, who obviously flew over to Sullivan's mansion and ran off saying, no, thank you very much. Or Tuchel or whoever we might have been linked with. But what it means now is I think the West Ham fans will realise on Saturday, hold on, we're actually, we're saying goodbye to a good one today, and I hope that he gets an amazing reception at the London Stadium, because this happens rarely, that you're able to say thank you and goodbye to a manager, whilst also being optimistic about what comes next, but maybe it wasn't quite what you were hoping for. We'll see.
If it feels a little bit like a relief, because also since this season began, there's been all that noise around his relationship with Tim Steidten, the sporting director. I remember going to a pre-season friendly between West Ham and Leverkusen, and there really talk then about, oh, Moyes going to lose his job. There's no relationship between these two. They're just waiting for an opportunity to sack him. There's been a lot of noise around the club. Like there was that strange story a couple of weeks ago when it came out that Steidten wasn't allowed in the dressing room or something. There's been a lot of sort of airing of dirty laundry in the media over the past few weeks, which I don't think is probably that helpful.
Yeah, but I think what they're doing is they're ultimately backing Steidten, who is he's more or less the architect of Leverkusen's squad and setup to some extent, or is that over?
I think it's probably over-egging. I would probably say that Simon Rolfs is the architect, but the Steidten contributed certainly, and he got his job based on the work that he did in Leverkusen, and deserved to. You know.
And I think that if you're going to get a high-profile director of football, Liverpool was sniffing around him. You need to back him. Let's see what he does. I will caution though against this kind of oscillation that West Ham go through from like boring to sexy. So you sort of start with Allardyce on the kind of lower.
That's
end.
The sexy.
That's sexy.
I'd argue that's slightly more boring. Then you go up to Bilic, bit sexier. Down to Moyes, not so sexy. Up to Pellegrini, bit sexier.
Yeah.
Back to Moyes, not so sexy.
Stop it! You're getting me hot.
And then you end up with Lopetegui, who I think is probably on the sexy end of things.
I don't think he is.
No, I don't think
I would say he's not sexy because he wears those kind of thin brown jumpers that trouble me. But anyway, let's see how it all works out. Luton fans, yes, this is kind of a big game for you because if you have a worse result than Forest do against Chelsea, you're going to be down. Crikey. Only one win in the last 15 games. The Hatters.
Also, London Stadium's kind of like the opposite of Kenilworth Road, isn't it? Like if Kenilworth Road's incredibly cramped, London Stadium is a vast track and field dome.
That Forest game against Chelsea, by the way, will take place Saturday at 5:30.
We should just point out as well that Moyes' actual final game as West Ham manager will be at the Etihad.
Could be a
on
big
the last
one.
Day. He's
What a way! What a way to say goodbye. That
what a way to roll out one last big hit of pure Moyes.
Yeah, as you say, he's done it before.
His record against City absolutely stinks. Though, especially
He's eventually beaten them.
One, do you know what? I should have put an asterisk there. It was we knocked them out of the League Cup once. That counts. It counts.
It does
counts.
count. It counts.
Nottingham Forest Chelsea is at 5:30, and a win for Forest will, in all probability, keep them up, sending Burnley down with Luton. Crikey, they're unbeaten in their 3 league meetings with Chelsea since they came up in 2022. Any other surprising stats relating to this game? Benji, you have one about Nicholas Jackson, I believe.
It's a little bit more fuel for the Nicholas Jackson might actually be quite good.
Okay.
Fire. Because he's on 13 goals now, right? And you have to look really hard for a foreign import outside the top 6 coming in and doing really well. And I did look hard, and what I found startled me. Right? over the last decade, there are only 3 players that have... so here's the conditions. You arrive at a non-top 6 club from a foreign league.
That's not what players told when they joined Chelsea, by the way. Just.
I know, but Chelsea are a non-top top 6 club, right? Now, I looked for players that had done that and then scored in their debut season, 15 goals or more, and I could only find 3, and they all played for the same club.
Chelsea?
No, you're never going to get it. But you might get the players once I tell you the club. It's Swansea. So 3, Michu's 1, Boney's 2, who's 3?
Lorente.
Oh, Seb. Hat-trick. But yeah, they're the only 3 I could find. Right. They're the only 3 I could find that scored, more than 15 goals in their debut season for a non-6 club.
But Nicholas Jackson's not an import.
He arrived directly from Villarreal last season. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, where he scored I think less than 13 goals last season.
He was injured
not
last
prolific.
season.
Basically, after all that, the point I'm trying to make is Nicholas Jackson, he's all right. He's okay.
Okay, there you go. And Chelsea have been very much all right. In a word, are they, Duncan?
Going to come second? I don't think so, no. But yeah, they have improved. I think, there's a little bit more cohesion. They're still capable of losing to Forest. There's just no consistency to them. But it's slightly better. They're ending on a slightly improved footing.
And Poch ultimately, now, I think he's definitely done enough to keep his job for next season. You've got to assume so. And also, there's quite a clear strategy that has emerged, which is Cole Palmer. That's kind of it. Build your team around him. He's a player you need to build your team around, and that's as good a strategy as any, I think.
Do you think he thrives in the chaos a little bit? I haven't seen enough of Cole Palmer in a sort of a structure yet, as a sort of a cohesive part of a system. So I don't know.
No, and that's why I think it's really hard to imagine him in an England side.
Yeah,
I'm kind of
exactly.
thinking about England at the moment. But I think Cole Palmer, as a player, that he is your system. Do whatever it takes. I kind of think sometimes that England should play like this around Bellingham. But anyway, if you've got a player who is that good, just do whatever it takes to work around him.
Is there a space on the plane for Cole Palmer?
Oh yeah, I think especially if have they confirmed 26?
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah.
Oh, well, then I think because it's maybe him versus Jared Bowen. Bowen is a sort of Southgate wet dream, but Cole Palmer won't play much, but he should definitely be there.
There you go. Also this weekend, Spurs against Burnley, which was, we mentioned, is key for Burnley. They have to win. If not, they're going to be back in the Championship. Spurs, their Champions League hopes, if they lose, will be over, but they're pretty much over anyway.
They are
7 points
S
behind.
is pathetic.
If they lose this game, by the way, that'll be 5 defeats in a row. And Postecoglou would be the first Spurs manager with such a dismal run of form since...
Fellow Aussie.
Indeed so. Indeed so. Elsewhere, Newcastle play Brighton. Everton hosts Sheffield United. Remember, the next goal that the relegated Blades concede will take them past Swindon as the outright leakiest team in Premier League history. Ooh. And Everton their Shareholders Association have issued a statement demanding that Farhad Moshiri recognise that 777 Partners are not fit and proper prospective owners of the club. 777 Partners who are facing legal action for fraud, essentially, in New York, which is a bit troubling. Palace are in amazing form. They visit Wolves, who are not so much. Bournemouth take on Brentford. And Aston Villa-Liverpool is Monday night, the final Monday night game of the season. Alrighty. Any of those light your fire?
I wanted to salute the work of Oliver Glasner at Palace. Just think to come in, his Eintracht teams at their best was so fun to watch, and they promoted the abilities of their attacking players. Like Daichi Kamada played brilliantly for Eintracht. I know he hasn't had a great time in Italy, but played wonderfully. He helped Randall Kolo-Muani go from a free transfer to a €100 million player, and very quickly he's turned that group of Palace players into they're just wonderful to watch at the moment, and in a very short space of time, Jimbo, under difficult circumstances.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I can't help recall...
Defensive Roy Hodgson, Benji?
Yeah.
He's a nice guy. He's a lovely, sweet man.
Oh, were you saying defend Roy Hodgson? No, I was going to say, I can't help but recall Roy Hodgson arriving at a similar point of last season, having a similar impact, but this is different.
Feels like this is part of a build towards something, rather than simply just playing better, which is kind of benign state, albeit useful. This is who we're going to be. It's a transition in identity, and yeah, Glasner's done brilliantly well.
It was a nice moment when Elise ran to Glasner after he scored.
Sure was. Yeah.
On Monday.
It's always nice, isn't it? Very good. Anything else you want to say, Benji?
A little curio Anthony Gordon.
Yeah.
He has won 6 penalties so far this season, which is pretty remarkable. 2 of them against West Ham. And he's that's joint third in the all-time list of penalties won in a season.
How many?
6. He's won 6 penalties.
Okay.
The most ever was Andy Johnson in that season where he scored 20 goals and got relegated in 04-05. And Wilfried Zaha's in second. And I just think it's notable because I think he's almost invented a new way of winning penalties, Gordon. He's amazing at getting fouled in those positions where he basically sticks his leg out, and he got another one at the weekend in the exact same sort of method. He got 2 against West Ham, and you think about all those players, they're just like clever. They're horrible little. It's like those players that you play against that are really wily and smart. You hate them as an opposition fan, but if they play for your side, you absolutely love them. So keep an eye out on Anthony Gordon to see if he can break the record by the end of the season.
I mean, that's what Andy Johnson did in 04-05. He kind of found a new way to win a penalty. It's almost like a little, like when they release a new game, there's a glitch in it and everyone takes advantage.
No, it's a loophole. Honestly, the way Anthony Gordon wins penalties...
So tell us how he does it, Benji.
Right. Basically, you're a defender about to kick the ball.
Yes.
I mean, there are variations on this, but he did this against West Ham twice. You're a defender about to kick the ball, and he'll just stick his leg in front of your foot. What he's actually done is foul you. But the way it looks to the ref and even to VAR is that that's a player that's been kicked and gone over in the box. And so, you see other players trying it when they're running and they almost break their stride to stick a leg, in between the defender's legs, or they cross the defender to make sure that the defender fouls them because there's nothing else they can do. He's brilliant at it, and I do wonder if it's a loophole they will close in subsequent seasons.
How would they close it?
Well, I think that to show that essentially the action that has caused the penalty is by the attacker.
If you're a protagonist
exactly,
in
that's
that
the
situation, I reckon that's what... I know it's a really, really hard distinction to draw, but that's to me the difference.
VAR will have no problem clearing that up to everyone's satisfaction. Very good. Well, thank you for that, Benji. But now, without any further dallying and delaying, let's get into Game 3 of this year's Intertotally. Intertotally time, listener, and you'll notice a slight and subtle shift in the audio quality here, but don't worry about that. Instead, feed on the raw drama and excitement as we bring you the third matchup in this year's new Super League format. You'll recall the 8 best players in the history of the Intertotally Cup have been assembled for this showdown of champions. We give them 5 questions each. So far, we've had Michael Cox and Tom Williams emerging to take their places in the semi-finals. 2 more men bid to join them today. Here's our first contestant, Big Bad Benji Lanyado. Great to have you, a finalist in 2021, bidding to maybe go one step further here in 2024. But this is the man you're up against. Oui, Jules.
Hello, Jimbo. Hello, everyone. Hi, Benny.
But Benji's not replying. There's a bit of beef, Jules. Benji was telling us there's a bit of beef between you two over past appearances. Yeah.
I can't remember. What happened?
I can't remember either, to be honest, Jules. But I think it was... I said earlier, I think it was very controversial. Just know
was
that.
Was it? I was going to say something nice about you, but now I won't now.
No, grudge match.
Yeah, this is all out. Pure competition. Excellent. Well, bidding for a place in the semi-finals, Michael Cox awaits the winner of today's contest. And if you're ready, let's get going with the questions. Jules, you're up first. Question 1. Which 2 cities have provided multiple European Cup or Champions League winners? 2 cities have had more than one club win.
So I need to name just 2.
Yes, there are 2.
So like Manchester and Milan.
Those would be good examples. And they would earn you a point. You're on the board, Julien Laurence. Benji Lanyado, your first question. Can you name a multiple European Cup / Champions League winning team from the sides that they have beaten in their various finals? These are in chronological order. So which club is it that won European titles against first Sampdoria, then Arsenal, then Manchester United, then Manchester United, then Juventus?
Barcelona.
It's correct. Benji, you are tied with Jules on a point apiece. Jules, question 2. Which club's top 2 all-time Premier League goal scorers are both Australian? There's a club and their Premier League goal scorers are both
one
from
club.
Australia. Yes.
I thought you said clubs with an S, like 2 clubs.
Yeah, but it's the apostrophe. It's
2
the
players.
proprietorial S. Yeah.
Okay. So Leeds then.
It's correct. Can you name them?
Yeah, if you can cue one.
No problem for Julien Laurence. A perfect 2 for 2. Benji Lanyado, this to stay level with Julien Laurence. Which player is the all-time Premier League goal scorer for 2 different clubs? He's been the all-time Premier League goal scorer for 2 different clubs. What's his name? 2 different clubs. The name of Premier League goal scorer belongs to this one man.
Yeah, just thinking of the candidates.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's going to be really obvious, but All-time Premier League.
Yeah, all-time Premier League goal scorer, holds the highest number of goals in the Premier League for 2 different clubs. And his name, Benji, is?
I sort of assume it's got. I'm going to say Alan Shearer.
Is correct. Boy, if you thought last week's questions were difficult, have a bang on these. So 2 for 2 for both contestants. Jules, though, let's ramp things up with question 3, which is, what was Carlos Tevez's first club? There's only one Carlos Tevez involved, but what was his first club?
Ever or in England?
No, ever.
Ever. Boca.
Is correct, Jules. You knew that. You were just playing with us. Question 3 for Benji. What was Sergio Aguero's first club?
Okay. Don't think it's River. Messi's was Rosario.
All good answers, but not relevant to the question we've been asking.
Yeah.
Can I press you for an answer, Benji Lanyado? Sergio Aguero's first club was...
Let me just think. Sergio... I'm just gonna say River.
Is incorrect. The right answer, did you know this, Jules?
Yeah, Independiente.
Ooh.
Independiente. Is it?
Yeah,
That's a point for me or not?
Yeah, that is correct.
What? Have the rules changed? We were supposed. We used to be able to still like, you know. Oh my God.
That'll be some other quiz on some other show that you do. Right, moving on. A slender lead for Julien Laurens as we reach question 4. Jules, these 3 players have 2 clubs in common. The players are Owen Hargreaves, Dietmar Hamann, and Rocky Santa Cruz. Which clubs do those 3 men have in common? Those 3 men have all played for 2 clubs. Which 2 clubs are they that have seen those 3 men play for them?
Bayern and City? Manchester City?
Absolutely right. Bayern and Manchester City. And thanks for supplying the Manchester on that, because had you meant Bristol or Stoke or etc. But no.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
4 for 4 for Julien Laurens. Benji, this to stay in with a shot of a semi-final. Can you tell me which 2 clubs these 3 players have in common? Nicolas Anelka, David Luiz, and Mikel Arteta. Those 3 players have all featured for 2 clubs. Anelka, Luiz, and Arteta. Which are the 2 clubs?
Am I allowed to write it down?
You're free to do as you... I mean, don't Google it. That'd be the only thing I would kind of urge you not to do. Listen, I'm actually watching Benji at the moment on a Zoom.
Anelka, Luiz, and Mikel Arteta. I'm going to say Arsenal and PSG.
Oh! That's impressive. And you bought yourself a final shot at winning a place in the final. Here we go then, Benji. This is your question 5. Ipswich Town have won promotion back to the Premier League after 22 years away. Can you name 2 of the managers they have had in those 22 years prior to the incumbent Kieran McKenna? So looking for two of the managers that Ipswich Town have had in the 22 years they've been away from the Premier League.
Crikey. I'll say George Burley.
Is correct. Just need one more to put the pressure back on Jules. "22 years, many famous names have come and gone from Suffolk. Just need one more from Benji Lanyado for a chance to meet Michael Cox in the semi-final. Benji, George Burley, and...
I might just have to take a bit of a guess here.
Take a bit of a guess.
Take a bit of a guess. Neil Warnock.
Oh, it was a percentage chance, but no. Neil Warnock, not one of the names on that
Mick
list.
McCarthy.
Yeah. Too late, the realisation.
Oh, come on.
You could have had Mick McCarthy. You could have had Joe Roy. You could have said Jim Magilton. You could have had Roy Keane. Paul Jewell, Paul Hurst, Paul Lambert, Paul Cook. Pretty much any
painful.
Paul. Yeah. All right, so...
Go on, give me Mick McCarthy. Give me Mick McCarthy. We can all
can't
agree
do
that I've
that.
got that, and we just move on.
I can't do that. But Jules, I can tell you that you are through now to a semi-final match-up with Michael Cox. Would you like your question 5 anyway?
Yes, please.
Okay, here we go then. Jules, which 2 former Premier League clubs have been relegated from the Championship this season? Former Premier League sides dropping out of the Championship this season. Who are they?
I've got no idea. I could guess, but there's no point waiting and wasting time.
Is there not?
And I've won already anyway, so...
Well, that's true. That's true. Very nice, Jules. For your peace of mind, let me just tell you that it's Huddersfield Town and Birmingham City who will be accompanying Rotherham down to League One, whilst you will be heading into the semi-final and that matchup with Michael Cox. Are you happy?
Very happy, thank you. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
No. I mean, thank you so much for taking part. And the same to you, Benji. Thank you for furnishing us with all that drama and excitement and moments of contemplation today. A brave stab at it. But no doubt you'll be following Jules with interest as he progresses through the tournament.
Yeah, I suppose so. Whatever.
Lovely stuff.
Good luck, Jules. Bon chance.
Thank you, mon ami. Thank you.
Many, many thanks to both of you. Benji, thank you for being with us today. And that brings us to the end of today's Totally Football show. We'll be back on Sunday, Monday morning, with our review of the weekend. Do hope you'll join us for that, listener. Many thanks to everyone who was involved and you, listener. And now, from all of us here, it's goodbye. The Totally Football Show podcast is available 3 times a week, bringing you all the football news you could reasonably be expected to care about. We've got views, we've got stats, we've got analysis, we've got some of the best football writers around, and the whole thing is absolutely free. So have a listen on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or all the usual places by clicking on the link below.